we've grown a lot in the past 18 years. So we started out with about 12 participants. We now have about 350. And, while some of those are single facility health systems, the vast majority are large hospital systems, as well as some federal agencies, state and regional HIEs, et cetera. And we are governed, so all of our trust decisions are made by our governing board, which is called the coordinating committee. And they have delegated some of the onboarding review process to eHealth Exchange staff. And we go through their criteria to confirm that that applicants meet the eligibility requirements. And we ask a bunch of questions, make sure they understand the rules of the road, how data can be used, when you can assert various purposes of use, and so on and so forth. And then we take them to the coordinating committee, and hopefully they can begin exchanging. For TEFCA, I think it makes a lot of sense. There in the past X number of months across the nation, for those who are involved in the data exchange space, there have been some very legitimate concerns about organizations potentially not, and in reality, not asserting the request for data for HIPAA treatment purposes, and they really haven't met that threshold. And so, trust has been in question. And so, what the recognized coordinating entity has decided to do for TEFCA, many of us learned last week, and it was announced yesterday, is that at least for TEFCA, responses to requests for treatment really fall into two buckets as to whether or not responses are required. And so, if the request, as I vaguely remember it, is asserted by a HIPAA covered entity, and it's very, very closely tied to some sort of an encounter, either virtual or remote, synchronous, asynchronous, then a response to that treatment query is required. But if the request is coming from, I don't know, what I'll clumsily call a non-traditional healthcare provider, so not a HIPAA covered entity, then responses to those requests are optional. Payers do have a right to retrieve data, and they have been for 30 plus years. Unfortunately, they've been retrieving data by warming up their fax machine and retrieving data that way, which of course is a very manual process for providers to find the right part of a medical record and fax it over. And I suspect very often they end up faxing over the entire medical record. My number one hope is that the vast majority of the trust concerns of 2023 and 2024 are resolved. And so I do think that we will have tighter policies, tighter eligibility criteria, and more trust, especially for the non-providers and the non-traditional providers. I'm hoping that we can tremendously accelerate the exchange of data for non-treatment purposes, so that we're no longer torturing providers and payers and public health with use of the fax machine. And I'm hoping that this all leads to better patient care and better management of public health.
Nice. Well, Jay, I really appreciate you being on the inaugural installation or installment of Mike on the Street, talking to the interop hero, Jay Nakashima, winner of the Points of Light class award for the Trebuchet project and all the great work you do. Jay, thank you so much for being here today.